of the victory. Since it was, the last thing was, is Zaydim Biados Kisur. And Mela says, and it says, V'yachem bo vonecha, it says, Amchu Yisrael, bo vonecha.
That's why Amchu Yisrael, he ain't saying that one.
Right. So it says the Amchu Yisrael b'Emerson is, that the Yisrael of Amchu Yisrael should refer to those. Yisrael is that's the Yisod is what's Amcha Yisrael. Why is there Dogish Amcha Yisrael? I mean, why did they say it here? On the Taka it says Aleihem. It says by by Mordechai Vester Kashomt Aleihem with the pronoun. Why here this is the Amcha Yisrael? Every time there's a Dogish, because what was the Gzeira of Yovan B'Emerson? The Yisod says Shechoshcha name Gzeiroisam. This is Choshech Apnei Sahoyim. Choshech is Yovan. The name says this is a Gozru. Says and they push it. They were Gozru. Says Kisu Lechem Al Jakeram Keran Achshach Chelik Yisrael. I know Chelik Yisrael. So Mela they push one Minatik the Zachas were no longer the Am Hashem. So it goes Amcho Yisrael Shkicho says like this Amcho Yisrael, which the Dogish is no says they're Amcho Yisrael. Because they push wanted to be Menatik the Kesha, they wanted to go and to destroy the connection. No longer Amcha Yisrael. That's why the Dogish Amcha Yisrael. But those who went in, who were Madlik, who cleaned the thing, that's already a different Madrega. It says that's Bonecha. So the whole Bonaich Lamudei Hashem. Says this is the Bonim or the Bonim Lamakam or the Oiskim B'Torah. He says that's what Zaydim Badesh said. So Mela says that. What? Right. So Mela but started the ones who we know from Josephus, the ones who brought the Greeks, and the ones who were the Messiah. They hated they were the ones. They were the Zaydim. In fact, there's a story after the story of the Hanuka thing. The Kohen, the quote-unquote Kohen Gadol, who would appoint him Kohen Gadol, which was the power of the throne, which was really the equivalent of the Jewish governor under Antiochus, was Menelaus. I think his Hebrew name was Menachem. This is Menelaus. So this Menelaus. Eventually, says they were so disgusted with him, the Greeks killed him. He says, "You brought the whole Soros. He says, you're the ones who brought us here." He says, the Mamsh killed him. So the Chura says the Yesod of the Chanuka, the thing is, that's how it began. That's what began from those. They were kaifer in the Torah, but from then they were kaifer in everything.
That's how it started.
But they start right, and that's why it says
Come from the Greeks.
Right, and no, just start from the Greeks at all. Start from them. And we know from Josephus, the story. But it says the Chura. I just want to say the Chura. It's not this marumas taka and the nusachat tefillah. All the pratim of the things is pushing marumas and the thing. That's why they once had the dafka the yichus.
The one says where it's.
That's where it's a maramis. That's where it's. This is the famous Yechon Kohen Gadol. And then the Amcha Yisrael Taki see the Yisod of the Gzeira. Why they have to be madgish to see. So and the Bonecha is Pasha. Das is Bonecha Bonecha. Okay. That will be Mr. Hashem B'Mam Shech this week on Sunday morning.
It's a wolf shop. It's a swix and lips. I hope comes.
Yeah, whenever comes. There's a fascinating. To a great extent, there are many people that are responsible for what we call the reversal of the secularization of Jewry. Gedolei Rosh Yeshivas, Hirsch in his Tkufa, there was the Gedolei Rosh Yeshivas, but there was one woman, Sora Schneer, that probably is one person that has a Chilik Gadol, because it wouldn't be one of the major problems in Europe. was that there were no girls to marry B'nai Torah. And therefore there was a disincentive to become a Ben Torah. If you know you're going to go to yeshiva, then you're going to get married, it's a certain, you're not going to become wealthy. But you're never going to get married too, it's a real disincentive.
Yeah.
The fact is that she raised the whole door from a Freund or Machab of Torah.
She's the lady who started Beis Yaakov.
She started Beis Yaakov. This is the story. How did I believe this is the story. How did she come? It was a tremendous, and she created a revolution. How did she get her inspiration? What's her story?
She was mending some from clothing and.
Well, she was a seamstress. She was a this. Yeah, but it was a thing. Yeah, that was the thing. But the story that I heard is she happened to be in Vienna, and she went to the shul, and a Rav spoke. Maybe it was his last Shabbos. I forget the details. He spoke. She was so inspired by what he said, because to make there's one thing but it's a revolution, and she had to get the Haskomas. It was a whole different thing with the Belzer Rebbe. She went to the Ger Rebbe, Chavetz Chaim. It was a whole thing because it was you changed. You never had women that were scholars. You had women that were an oizer to help their husbands that were scholars. But to have women to have it and you had individuals, of course, but to have an organized effort to create women that are scholars was a revolution. And she needed the haskama of Gedolei Torah to do it. When any time one creates a revolution, you're going to have a lot of resistance. That's just the nature of revolution.
Rabbi Gamil, Rabbi Yeshua.
What?
He wanted to create a revolution. He was doing something.
Right, but you see, when you're in charge, it's a lot easier. When you're just a little woman who's a seamstress, it's a little tough. It's tough to create a revolution.
Yeah.
And this one woman, she started small, but she created really a revolution, and she so inspired the other, her Talmidos, they went to these cities and created it. And I'm sure wherever it was, there's going to be, the arch conservatives was never like this, and one could well argue. Listen, you're in creating women as scholars, you're really you're blurring the difference of genders, and the role of a wife, and the husband. The joke was in Yavna, which is the women's seminary in Cleveland, as tells. The joke was that they want to marry, their boys that are working, so they can support them. They can sit and learn. That's the joke. But it was a revolution. You need a lot of inspiration to create the revolution. Who inspired her to? I mean, it takes an awful lot of. You're going to be criticized. That people are going to say, "Who are you?" At least a person is an Adam Gadol. When they criticize him, he can speak to him and learn. He can show him who he is. After all, she was a seamstress. She probably was not a scholar, in the conventional way. I mean, she was learned, but not a scholar. She brought in people who were scholars, but so she went. The story that I had heard was that she had went to a shul in Vienna, and she was so. I guess the Rav was. I don't know what he had said, but about the generation, about the achrayas haklal, the responsibility for the generation. She was so inspired, She.
What year was this?
It was probably after World War I. Shortly afterwards.
So the world was an intellectual kind of place. It was a destruction at that time.
Right. It was a total.
Especially Europe.
Yeah. After World War I was just a terrible thing.
Joining all the Antis and
what?
Girls were joining all the.
Yeah. It was also because they had in Poland, they had compulsory secular education for the boys and the girls. So they were exposed now. They were out of the home, really, and exposed to the broader culture. So it was But it was that drasha that inspired. That's what I imagine. You know how it says, when I'm going to speak in shul. You never know who's listening, who's sleeping, you never know who you're touching. You just never know. You can imagine when he left the shul, you think, it's the same old thing. No one listens to me anyway, you know. And yet that Rav who said the drasha created, indirectly created a whole revolution. So you never know when he speaks as who, what effect you have. You know? Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been studying the story of Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, and the whole story bothers me. I mean, it bothers everybody, right? But I have a solution, and most of the people I talk to don't get it. My solution, but it happens to go back to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Right, so Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, actually goes back before that to the issue between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. So you have this Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai thing going on, right? And they're upset about it, and it's not really clear what's going to happen. The world is in turmoil, right? The world is in turmoil. So Yochanan ben Zakkai comes and says, you know what? By Rosh Chodesh, you're going to come. Instead of going to the Beis Din, you got to go to. He makes this takana, right? But it's a takana. It's not voted on by the Sanhedrin, right? And he says you got to go to where the seat is, right? Referring to the Sanhedrin. So what happens is a couple of Mishnah and Rosh Hashanah, they come. The Edom go to come, and then another set of Edom come, and he declares Rosh Chodesh. Then Dorsa ben Hercules goes to Rabbi Yeshua and says, what's going on here? These Edom are not good Edom.
This is
right?
Rabbi Gamliel. This is not Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. This is Rabbi Gamliel.
Yochanan ben Zakkai.
He had already passed away already.
Right, but Rabbi Gamliel made the declaration that that's Rosh Chodesh. Rabbi Gamliel, right. So, but the Edom come. Dorsa ben Hercules goes to Rabbi Yeshua and says, you can't, why do they allow them, right? And then eventually he has to walk to see Rabbi Gamliel, right? He makes him come with his cloak. But Rabbi Yeshua was the one that was supposed to declare Rosh Chodesh because he was the Beis Din at the time. But he wasn't located in Yavne, he was outside of Yavne.
That's what you're saying.
That's what the facts are. Like because the facts come because he traveled, and we also know there's another in Bava Metzia, I think, where they say where after the destruction they talk about where everybody goes to.
Yeah, but this is years later. You know?
Right. No, I mean, it was a destruction. They all left Yavna. They come. Yochanan ben Zakkai pulls them all out with Vespian and okay.
Yeah.
So, but when I was, and then, but what ends up happening is lots of stuff happens, and then there's the Bo B'Yom. Right. So, I got a million questions on what's going on here because it's not so obvious what's going on, and clearly the Gemara is just giving us a very superficial view of it, and we have to put all the pieces together. But one of the question is Bo B'Yom. It sounds like when you just read the story straight off, it sounds like we give Rabbi Gamliel the boot. Eliezer comes in, and he's in charge, and he opens up the doors, and all of a sudden we had 400 people there. Well, practically, physically, it couldn't have happened that way because people aren't sitting outside waiting to come in that day, right? Where they're all lined up waiting to get in. It's like a rock concert. Excuse the analogy, but it's not really like that. So what I was actually thinking was that Bo B'Yom was actually planned. It was that everybody was planning on coming, and Rabbi Gamliel wouldn't let people in because the outside wasn't like the inside. But not that they weren't, and the classic understanding is, these guys weren't sincere and whatever. I'm wondering if they were just spies, and he didn't allow spies inside. And Rabbi Gamliel was powerful, but he had a lot of problems with the Roman government. But Eliezer ben Elazariah was young. He was 18. He was descended from Ezra, so he was a chashuv guy, but he was young, so he could. So they have this whole convention planned, like a Torah vote convention. They have all these Rabbanim come there because they got to sort everything out, and they're coming in to sort it all out. But they put him in charge so that he's going to be the ones dealing with the Romans when these spies come in, and they're protecting Rabban Gamliel. And then once the convention is over, and that's the whole story of Idias, right? If you go through the Gemara of Idias, the Mishnayos and Idias, right? Their Mishnahs are everywhere, right? And we know that these Mishnahs are repeated everywhere else. So the Mishnahs really are gathered to say, let's sort out the base Shammai, base Hillel issues. And if you look at what some of the things they're talking about, who do we follow, how do we follow, who do we listen to, and some of the people who gave Edis there. Anyways, that's sort of where I'm holding, but there's nobody else who sort of that I can really talk to that's got a real understanding of history. And when I go and I look at some of the Sfarim, and I have to do everything in English because of my lap. The problem is that they all make it. They don't get into the really political issues that are going on, and I don't mean political in a negative sense. I mean political in.
See, I don't. I just personally have a problem with that approach. With the approach in general. We do find there's one Gemara that one instance which is recorded. It's several sources. One of them is Gemara Bava Kama Lamed Chesam and Aleph about spies coming in.
Right.
There was only one instance. They came, they left. It doesn't. The whole impression of the Gemara there is just simply that he was he was in the yeshiva. There's let me put it this way. There's two. The person who really deals with this thing, who speaks it out at length, is Isaac Halevi and Doris Rishonim.
I've heard of that sefer. I haven't seen it.
It's very. I mean, it's printed. It's available. I'm sure in Toronto someone has it.
Yeah.
So you can order it, but it's in Hebrew.
Right.
It's not translated. I mean, there was one person I remember years ago who lives in Toronto who wanted to do something with it, to translate it, to reorder it, to translate it. There was a Rosh Turin. He had one time been a Rabbi in Ner Yisrael for years.
Is Doris Rishonim considered reliable? I know it's referenced to everybody. But
he's a genius.
Who was he?
His name was Yitzchak Isaac Halevi, Rabinovitz. He was originally from Lithuania. He studied in the yeshiva of Volozhin. One time he was one of the governors of the yeshiva of Volozhin. He was a personal friend, colleague of Chaim Soloveitchik, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Volozhin, later on the Rav Brisk. He made his living, I think, he wanted to become self-sufficient, not through the rabbinate. He dealt in spices, and he became bankrupt. Eventually paid back all his creditors. But he went to Germany, I guess to do something in terms of business, whatever it is, to start something, to do something. And he saw that how the secular historians had even perverted the history and therefore laid the foundations for the secularization of Jewry as a whole. And he, with his genius and his tremendous encyclopedic knowledge, created a critical history, critical of the critics, and that's his Doris Rishonim.
I've heard it referenced, and I've seen people bring things down from it, but it's
right. Yeah, but it's he wrote it more in terms of polemics so therefore it's not so accessible. It's not so accessible. But he deals with this because the secular historians deal with this
I think
incident.
It's tremendously important. Yeah. Because I sit here and I talk to people. I'm not any way, shape, or form a Talmud Chacham, but I sit, and people don't know who people are. and it's frightening. Like I'm working through Choni Hamagil this week, right? I'm trying to understand the story of Choni Hamagil, and the story is a very difficult story, right? I mean, at some level it's very nice, and the carob tree, and it's like a nice, it's nice.
No, it's a very profound story.
Oh, it's
It's a very profound story.
There's so many issues. Because we're his grandchildren. Remember, he goes to visit the home, right? And they say your son's son is alive. Well, where's the son? Where's the son of the daughter? Where's the son and where's the daughter? Right? And then carob tree takes 15 years. I went and I checked this out. Carob trees takes 15 years to germ. It's not a 70-year issue. So therefore,
so that could be. It's hard. On that itself, with the 70 years. And the fact that Chazal said this, it could very well be, and the Zigmor Bechiris also says the same thing, with the 70 years. It's not just an agadata with a thing, it seems to be more, could be the variety of carob tree that was common there, which probably, the date tree,
right,
that was common in Israel, doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
That we find date trees all over Israel was imported from Iraq.
Okay, so they're not the same date tree.
Not that they, I was told, whatever it is, that they found. There were pits of the day that they found in Masada and other places, and they worked to regerminate them, and they started regerminating.
Okay.
And these are 2,000-year-old things,
Days, yeah.
and they hope eventually to recreate
the
Palestinian, the original Palestinian date.
Wow.
So it could be the variety of carob that they had really was different than the one we have today. It's just hard to say that agadatas don't have to be literal.
Of course.
Yeah. However, that thing with the 70 years is also brought in Gemara Bechiris and Daf Ches, where the Gemara is really comparing dates of fruition, with other things, and it seems to be that it was understood literal, not just the agadic thing, which doesn't have to be. It seems that it could be the variety that they had, which just doesn't exist today. We know that there's just so many different apples.
Right.
So but it's a very profound story. On many levels, and it's an agata. That's what people understand. When you're coming to an agata, you're not necessarily. We're not. On one level, it's for children. It's okay. It's it's a story.
It's a nice story,
but the just on the most basic level, I'm reminded, that story with Choni Hamagil and the carob tree, is reminiscent. There's a beautiful story. There was one of the first authors in Yiddish. There was this Greta of Hamlin. She was in Germany. She lived in the mid-1600s. Fascinating, like a diary. She writes of her life. It's a fascinating stuff. So I believe the following story comes from her diary. It was written in a dialect of Yiddish. Again, things change. It doesn't exist today. It's a Western Yiddish, the German dialect, which Germans stopped speaking that dialect because it was just so, again, the secularization of German Jewry. The Yiddish that we have